We've got a great panel here today, and we're going to get into this talk because we have a lot of really interesting things to do. For those of you who have not met me, I am Rob Pasick, and I'm really happy to have some first-timers here. How many first-timers at LeadersConnect? Woo, look at that. That's beautiful. Glad to hear it. And we've been going for over 20 years. I forgot exactly how it's been. And the program keeps growing. We have a great panel today. We're doing more panels because this is all about leadership and how leaders, what they face and challenges, what the great lessons that they bring, and how they operate. And last month we had leadership from the nonprofit sector. We've had leadership from the Medical Device Center. We're going to have in 2018 leaders from the higher ed. We have a new superintendent of school in Ann Arbor who just won Superintendent of the Year, so that's really great. And we're going to have next month leaders from Detroit who are coming to Ann Arbor. So we have a nice panel of people who are in the entrepreneurial space in Detroit, and they're going to come to Ann Arbor, and then we're going to bring leaders from Ann Arbor to do LeadersConnect Detroit. So it's going to be kind of fun exchange of that. And then now also on December 1st, to help you plan for the new year, we're going to do a session on planning and using journals and diaries in 2018. And myself and we have a couple other people who will be presenting, and I'll be featuring my new journal, which I'm really excited about. I'm very disorganized, and I've always been seeking solutions on how to get better organized, so I wrote my own journal. And it was great, except I couldn't find it. That's the only problem. So we're going to be doing that, and lots of really interesting things coming up around Martin Luther King Day in January. So, and I want to thank our sponsors. So, Mike, you're here. You want to say hi and talk about Bank of Ann Arbor? And Chris, you also want to come up? You're here first, so I'll let you go. Yeah.
Ladies first, thanks, Rob. Thank you all. Raymond continues to be very proud to sponsor Rob's unique spirit of collaboration that happens early mornings here at Zingerman's with wonderful coffee. Really excited about the panel today. You all play a huge part in enriching the community, which is why we all live, work, and play here. So very excited. Thank you.
You want to say what Raymond is, by the way? You make your pitch here.
Raymond is an awesome regional CPA, wealth management, corporate investigative service firm with some of our best people here in Ann Arbor. I see one of them back there, Debbie Crown.
Debbie O.
Although she was Spartan, but I still love her. Go Blue.
Spartan, what is that?
Go great this year. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out so early in the morning. Rob, good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
How about a round of applause for Rob? He's been and a great panel this morning. I work for Bank of Ann Arbor. We are a bank. So I head up this technology industry group here. One of the really unique things about Ann Arbor is I think we have a great arts community, science, and technology community, kind of all in one body here. We're really proud to support the arts communities here with the Sonic Lunch and the Michigan Theater and the Arts Center and things like that. The bank does a lot to support those organizations. And then my group, it's a 15-year anniversary of our group this year, and we've been doing some fun stuff. So we're going to do a fun thing, bringing the arts and tech community together in something we call the Ann Arbor Tech City Jam. On December 15th at the Neutral Zone, and it's going to be musicians from the technology community coming together for a kind of live music performance at the Neutral Zone. And you're all invited. There's rumors that I might play. Yeah, I might play. We'll see what happens. But you're all invited, and it will be on a Friday. It's December 15th at the Neutral Zone. You know, this morning Rob's nice enough to have adult food and beverages for breakfast. We'll also have adult food and beverages for the evening on a Friday there. So yes, we will not. Well, kind of adult entertainment, but you know, Rob, it's early in the morning. Okay. Anyway, so welcome everybody. Yes.
And great stuff
Thanks,
going
Rob.
on at the bank. 15 years. How many of you have benefited from Bank of Ann Arbor's efforts to reach out to early startup companies and help those folks several people out there, I have myself, people that really can't afford a lot of the services. The bank can't make profit off them, but Mike helps them at that beginning. And we've had, I want to shout out to Doug Sung is not here, but he's presented at LeadersConnect before, and great news that he raised $70 million. The company Duo Security raised $70 million this year, and has now a valuation over $1 billion. So amazing. Startup in Ann Arbor. By the way, by profession, I'm an executive coach, and I had the opportunity to work with people like Doug, and also another company that was over $1 billion, which was Sperling. So I work with a lot of people who are new to executive role and are trying to figure out how to do leadership. So I'm going to get right into the program. We're going to start with a little entertainment here. Russ, you want to explain what we're going to do and maybe give the words to the songs that people don't remember?
Sure. So, yes, it's great to see a lot of friendly faces out in the audience. Thanks for showing up so early in the morning. It's not something we arts leaders do.
We partied all night, right?
So, but the most friendly face out there for me is my wife, Deb. And she needs to stand up here. Because today's her birthday. We thought we would start off with a musical arts experience by singing Happy Birthday to Deb. Are we ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deb. Happy birthday to you.
Just the format, just borrow that back one more time. The format's going to be each presenter is going to have a few minutes to talk about their particular institution and setting, and then we're going to have a conversation among us about the question of leadership and the arts in Ann Arbor, and then we're going to open up for the audience to participate. We have lots of other arts leaders out here, and we're going to give you all a chance to have a say and talk about what you're up to as well. So we're going to kick it off with Russ, and you got your own mic. All right, go, man.
All right, well, we've been given instructions to go very quickly, so if I speak too quickly, tough luck. The Michigan Theater Foundation was formed in the 1970s to keep the Michigan Theater from being turned into a food court. And now it operates as an active community cultural venue, and thank you to everyone who made that happen. The theater opened, the theater will celebrate its 90th anniversary on January the 5th coming up, and a galaxy of stars have played the Michigan Theater, and its renowned Barton organ is considered a national treasure. Little did you know. In 2014, the Michigan Theater Foundation purchased half of the State Theater, which is just a half a block away. And in 2017, this year, before the end of the year, we're going to open it up because it's the 75th anniversary year of the State Theater. It opened in 1942, and it was designed by a very famous architect, C. Howard Crane. And we're very proud to be investing a lot of money in that theater, as well as the Michigan Theater, as we look to make that a state-of-the-art kind of place to go see specialty films. The Michigan Theater also, you may be surprised to learn, runs a national conference for independent cinemas called the Art House Convergence, and we run that in association with the Sundance Film Festival every January in Utah. Each June, we do an international film festival in Ann Arbor, Detroit, Dearborn, and Oakland County called Cinetopia, so put that on your calendar. And we're currently in the middle of an $8.5 million capital campaign, of which we've raised $8 million to do the renovation at the State Theater and make other capital improvements to the Michigan Theater, including new seats and a lot of improvements to our projection booth. 7,000 people are members of the Michigan Theater. They renew their membership every year. Annually, about 300,000 admissions are taken at the State and Michigan Theater. And by the year 2020, we expect about 400,000 admissions to be collected by the Michigan Theater Foundation. So that's some of the basic facts about the business of the Michigan Theater. And because this is a leadership thing, I thought I would inflict my thoughts on leadership on you. So managing to achieve a temporal sustainability, that's a fancy nonprofit way to say profitability, is essential, but persistence, vision, and the right cast of work colleagues can produce amazing results beyond profit. And I believe that is possible, even likely, if you have that vision, the right cast of work characters, and persistence. For me, transcendence is the goal. Transcendence meaning going beyond what people think might be possible and towards something that's surprising and delightful, maybe even profound and transformative. To my way of thinking, Zingerman's Roadhouse, where we are today, if you didn't know, it's too early in the morning to know those kind of things, and the Zingerman's organization in general is a business that works towards that transcendence goal. They're not just a restaurant, they're just not a food place to pick up food. They want to teach you about food. They want to let you into the window of what cuisine and the potential and the diversity of foods that there are out there. I think that transcendence is their hope. And transcendence is nearly an impossible objective to achieve, but I think it's appropriate for a nonprofit arts organization. In a more practical vein, I'm also passionate, deeply passionate, and a deep believer in rigorous and effective strategic planning. I think that increases your odds of success measurably. So I think there's three key things to leadership in the way that I pursue it. The first is vision. To lead effectively over decades, a leader has to have vision. And I think that's the ability to, without ego, see possibilities just ahead of the curve of time. To see beyond what is, and with reasonable success, see what there might be ahead. Casting. Now, most business leaders talk about the team, but unsurprisingly, I think of it more like casting a movie or a play. The members of the work cast must mesh effectively together and productively. And what that means to me is that individually you're using your true talent and skills, but simultaneously giving yourself over to the role that you play with your organization. This duality of your work character both allows you to be personally effective and mesh seamlessly with the other characters at work. An excellent cast will dramatically affect the arc of the drama of business. That is, building towards a satisfying outcome that might turn out to be even better than the scripted vision of the leader. And the third quality is persistence. Work hard every day with only the slightest fear of failure, investing the time and careful thought required in a Zen-like, day-after-day way to achieve lasting results, and hopes are making the world just a slightly better place to live for a generation or two. To support vision and your cast and persistence, and to keep yourself pointed in the right direction, you need excellent bookkeeping and serious financial management. And strategic planning is the effective way to articulate and you need a strategic plan that effectively articulates your mission, vision, and clear goals. Goals that are taken seriously and tracked month after month after month and revised year after year after year. You need to do this to make sure that the work of your cast and yourself isn't wasted, that your persistence isn't propelled in the wrong direction, and that your vision is fastened to the smart strategies and effective tactics that you need to be successful.
How do I follow that? So my name is Marie Klopf, and I'm the President and CEO of the Ann Arbor Art Center, and I'm just about to celebrate my 5th year here, which I know. As most of you know, and as I've found out over the years, everybody here probably knows more about the Art Center than I do. How many of you have taken a class at the Art Center? How many of you have come to an exhibition? How many of you buy your Christmas gifts there? So you see what I mean? I'm very fortunate to be a part of such an amazing arts organization in Ann Arbor. We are the visual arts anchor. Michigan Theater's at one end of town. We're at the other, arts in the middle. And so it's a great community of arts and culture that we have here. We're 108 years old. So we're one of the oldest arts organizations in the state of Michigan. We've been at our location for 43 years now. So we've been a part of the fabric of the community for quite some time. You may or may not hear rumblings these days. Things are going very well at the Arts Center. We have new problems, new challenges every day. Last year we had 300 students that we weren't able to fit into classes because we're full. And so maybe some expansion opportunities are coming up in the very near future. But I've thought a lot, because I'm not from arts and I'm from the for-profit community world. What we do at the Ann Arbor Art Center is we have classes, we have exhibitions, we have events, we have a space for local artists to sell their local handmade artworks. But I think the value of the Art Center is not what we do, it's what happens when you're there. You know, you watch students in classes, it's the opportunity to express yourself creatively. It's the relationships that you form with the person sitting next to you. I mean, in so many ways, it's how you connect with the art that's on the wall or a collection. How does it make you feel? So when you walk away, this is an opportunity. When you come into our doors, it's an opportunity for you to escape the day-to-day, issues that we all deal with in our lives, and to be inspired, and you walk away with a great feeling. What we do in there is we make you feel great. We give you an opportunity to have experiences that change your life, that when you walk away, you can be more creative. I think Joan mentioned that. When you walk out and you're exposed to the things that happen and you have that moment in your mind, when you leave, I think you're better people at your workplace, right? Because you've had that opportunity to rest and to have some joy in your life. So as the leader of the Ann Arbor Arts Center, we have a lot of really creative people that work there. And as the leader, my job is to let them bring their passion to life so that every day we can make you feel great.
My name is Jim Fleming, and I have an agency called Fleming Artists, and I'll be in business 40 years next year, and I started it here in Ann Arbor. I'm often asked, and we represent artists, so I put people on the road. I get them work. That's the bottom line is what I do. And people ask, how did I get started? And I always relay the story that when I grew up in Appalachia, and blue collar. I used to spend a lot of time up in the woods, and I was up in the woods once when I was about 10 years old, and there were two snakes that were fighting. I thought they were fighting. I found out later they were mating, but I had a rope with me, and I tied one of them up into a tree. And then I went down and got all my buddies and charged them each a nickel to come up and see the snake. Well, it was a snake. So we got back up, and all there was a rope with a hole at the end, this was a snake. But what really bothered me is I had to give the money back. And so I kind of promised myself I would never do that again. So my wife Elaine and I were having dinner at P.F. Chang's earlier this week, and I usually don't get the fortune cookies. I don't break them apart because I eat them, and I've got a sugar issue. I love sugar. So, but I did that day, and I swear to God, this is what my fortune is. Your love of music will be an important part of your life. And I thought, too late, It's like, that wasn't hard to predict, right?
If only you had known.
Yeah, if only I had known.
I didn't say love of snakes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I can't tell you the origins of my business because it's unusual for a business like mine to be located in a city like Ann Arbor. It usually would be New York or LA or Nashville or maybe even Austin, Texas. But I went to grad school at Michigan State. I wanted to be a college president. At 24, I became an assistant and then an acting vice president of the college. And about 26, I got a call from old friends in this area. I was in Chicago, and they said, you want to come back to Michigan and start a theater. And I really found out really quickly that I probably didn't want to be a college president because I was spending about half my day in meetings and the other half politicking. And it wasn't my idea of fun. So I threw it all away, and I came back, and we started something called the Black Sheep Repertory Theater in Manchester. And my vision at that time was I really, really wanted to work with, my background was more with working with singer-songwriters. And I wanted to start an agency that would represent deserving singer-songwriters so they didn't have to worry about getting the work themselves. So out of the theater came things like, I brought Second City in for 3 days. And people there thought I was crazy. And so we ended up adding 3 shows, sold out all the shows. And so I approached them and said, are you doing this other places around the country? And they said, not much. And I said, well, do you mind if I try to find you other work? Because I'd come out of colleges. And so over the next 15, 20 years, I turned Second City into a national touring company, and that helped pay the bills to be able to build the agency that I wanted to build, which was representing singer-songwriters. That combined with, I got in '81 the job to book all of what was then called the Monterey Detroit Jazz Festival. And then out of that, other opportunities, including the opening artist for the Pope when he spoke. So I got the Pope gig too. By the way, he missed his cue.
Oh.
Do you remember? So he missed his cue. I had all these kids who were supposed to sing for him, and he started talking before they sang for him. And I said to this Father Pat that I was working with at the time, I said, who is that? There was this broken English. He said, it's the Pope. I said, tell him to stop. And they said, it's the Pope. So anyway. So I started.
He was neither the first or the last infallible person you ever worked with as an agent.
No, it's a prerequisite. So what I did in terms of a vision, I wanted to build this agency that represented singer-songwriters, and I decided I can do it from here. And I was determined and persistent, and I found out in terms of business, the intersection of business and art, in the 80s when I was losing tons of money, I was I think maybe the first person that did live shows at the Michigan Theater back then, and did these brilliant things like Eeyore's Christmas Present and the World's Worst Film Festival. They were just such bad ideas, and I lost so much money. But out of that came the realization that I had to do things with my heart and my head. I was doing them with my heart, which we tend to do in the arts sometimes, and you've got to find that balance. So I started using my heart and my head, and over the years built an international agency, had offices in Nashville and Portland, Oregon, and Melbourne, Australia, and here. We ended up having over 100 artists, did about 3,000 shows a year, and in 2015, kind of the pinnacle was we were nominated as one of only 5 agencies in North America as the Independent Agency of the Year, which was the first time that an agency outside of one of those meccas was, Since that, there have been some changes, and now I'm just working at home. I get to take naps. But it's been a really, really wonderful, interesting ride, and all these kind of principles that Russ was talking about are things that I applied over the years, and especially things like I believe in vision, I believe in purpose. I represent a lot of socially active artists. I was Ani DeFranco's agent for 25 years. I represent Holly Near. I represent Tom Paxton. It feels like the work is more than just getting them work. It's also them out there changing lives and empowering people. So today, I've got about 15 artists. People always say, anyone we know, and the people that usually people know in this area would be Capital Steps and Jeff Daniels and Judy Collins, but I have about 15 artists in total. So I'll pass it on, but that's me and that's my background.
Morning. My name is Mark Clague, and actually I'm along with many people here, sort of a deep Ann Arborite. I've been here, was actually born in Ann Arbor. My grandfather is the one for whom Clague School was named, and so I love this community, and it's a real honor to be back here as a professor at the University of Michigan, which is sort of a weird thing to have a townie be a professor, but it's awesome because I actually know where things are. Need something from the hardware, I know right where to go on Stadium. So, but I got involved really in arts leadership through my own research program. So I was a graduate student at the University of Chicago looking for a research project, and I was getting focused on music in the United States. And I fell in love with the architecture in Chicago, particularly a theater downtown called the Auditorium Theater, which opened in 1889. It's now Roosevelt University, for those of you who know it. And it was a headline in the Chicago Tribune from the day it opened, December 10th, 1889, said, "Dedicated to music and the people." And as a historian, I wanted to know, well, what music and what people, and how did this come to be? And it really became a study in the kind of advocacy rhetoric that we were using in the arts in the late 19th century to bring this European tradition to the United States, to sort of move something that was seen as aristocratic into a democratic sphere. And a lot of it had to do with money. Like, how do we raise enough money to build this building? And, what is a value proposition to the community? And it was all basically about saving the world. I mean, that was how they were getting people to donate to this. Some of those people like Marshall Field and George Pullman and these big, business leaders who were the ones who put up the money to build the Auditorium Theater. And so I really came to understand as a historian that following the money was a really handy research technique. Because if money is about value, and the things we care about, we put price tags on, and we're willing to part with our own hard-earned cash for this value, it can tell us a lot about how people think and what they care about. And so that led me to, nonprofit association minutes and budgets and all this kind of stuff that those of us in the arts usually don't know anything whatsoever about, or at least we're not trained to look at those kinds of things. We probably came to know budgets through grant proposals, where they said, attach your budget. And we went to someone else and, have you ever written a grant proposal before? And what is this thing? And how do I do it? And so it's more of our improvisational techniques, learning the business side. But I've always been in education, and I think, for me, one of the aspects of leadership that is a root or a core value is just that ability to mentor, to help others, and whether usually it's a undergraduate student, but it's also our communities. I think that's one of the interesting things about the arts is this proverbial sort of double bottom line. I mean, we don't have that profit statement at the end of the year that galvanizes everybody to know exactly what are our sales figures this year, how do they compare month over month, year after year. We tend to use other metrics like, well, we lost a lot of money this year, but we did this good in our community, and our community is stepping up to support us more than they have in the past. So I think it's understanding that being a nonprofit is really a kind of a language that can be problematic, because it's really not about not making profit. It's really about sort of a social profit or a public good organization. And so we have to look at how our service mission deserves that special tax benefit of nonprofit status. I mean, why would people donate to us? And we need to be able to answer that question for our communities and constantly challenge us into how an arts organization is really a service organization, and that mission needs to be out in front. And I think for all of us, it's we have revenue producing aspects of what we do. So Jim's business is not all that different from the music school. I mean, we sell tickets to some things. You should come. But we do over 700 events, I think, every year, and about 3 dozen of them are actually ticketed. Most of them are free, and there are just hundreds of amazing students playing recitals. So if I ask you to do anything, it's just to show up to the music school, come to Hill Auditorium. There's incredible art making happening. And often because it's free, people think it doesn't have a value, because they didn't have to pay for it. And really, there's incredible talent we have at the School of Music, and we'd love to serve you by having you attend our events.
Mark, can you also maybe say a little bit about UMS, because Matthew Van Biesen got called to New York to book a famous artist. I don't think it was the Pope, but probably somebody at that level.
I bet we could sell out Hill for the Pope. I imagine.
he regrets not being here. We'll have him next year, but you are the board of UMS.
Yeah.
You could just say a little bit about that too.
So I'm a professor at the School of Music, but I've been working with the University Musical Society for many, many years as a pre-concert lecturer. And I was invited by Ken Fisher, who I'm sure everyone knows here, as an arts leader. You can't say no to Ken. So he asked me to be on the board about 8 years ago. And I said yes, because I wanted to see how a really great arts organization ran. And so I'm now the secretary of the board with our new president, Matthew Van Biesen, who comes to us from the New York Philharmonic. Amazing guy. I'm sure you'll have a chance to meet him maybe at a future Arts Connect, but really bringing a lot of energy and just to the organization, a lot of fresh thinking, and also an incredible just Rolodex of contacts. I mean, Ann Arbor's, we were pretty spoiled in Southeast Michigan for the quality of the arts aspect we have. We have the ARC, which is nationally known, if not internationally known, folk venue. We have University Musical Societies bringing the top artists in the world. When the Berlin Philharmonic comes to the United States, they usually stop at New York, Chicago, and Ann Arbor, and then they go home. So it's pretty amazing what the University Musical Society does for the quality of life around here. And so that's another thing. I am doing a big, one little plug, and we're doing a big project collaboration with the University Musical Society, and Matthew in particular is very excited about what it means to be a performing arts organization affiliated with a university, and how does that change how we do things. So we talk about the art we're making a lot more than maybe other places, but we're doing, one of my projects is a critical edition of George and Ira Gershwin's music, and so on February 17th, it's a Saturday at 7:30 p.m., we're going to do a complete concert performance of all the music of Porgy and Bess at Hill Auditorium. It has not been done complete. It's maybe been done complete twice in the history of the piece. The Boston tryouts in 1935, and then a single production in England, the Lindeborg production in the late 80s. So really a sort of not to be missed experience. Our students will be performing, as well a bunch of professional soloists that UMS is bringing in. We'll have an all-day symposium the day before, discussions that whole weekend. And of course it's about this critical issue of, something like an Ani DeFranco would bring to the table about, what does race mean in America today? And, how do we deal with a work written by, sort of pioneering white artists about black life in Charleston, North and South and black and white and all sorts of interesting issues that come up. So I think it's one of the things that really makes the art special in Ann Arbor, so I hope to see you there.
Good morning. My name is Marianne James, and I am the Executive Director of the ARC. I'm going to start with one of the questions that Rob asked us to consider, and that is what are some of the biggest challenges you face as a leader in the arts world? And in preparing for this today, one of the biggest challenges that I realize about my role and about the ARC in general is how do you begin to step away from the history of an organization and let that organization become who it is as it grows and evolves. So especially when you've got an organization like the ARC that is so iconic and whose experiences tactily are kind of woven into people. I was just talking with Rick as we started today, and he was telling me about remembering sitting on the floor in the first ARC, and some of you may remember that. The ARC was actually started in a living room of an old Victorian home on Hill Street. And it was started by 4 churches, and there's a long history to the ARC. And how much of that can I say in 5 minutes? Very little. At the same time, 2 people who are very key to the ARC and its beginning are sitting right here in this room. One of them actually referred to the founders of the ARC as sort of the grandparents of the ARC. And we are an interesting organization in that our founders, many of them, are still integral to the organization. They may not be governing right now as part of our board of directors, but they are people that we go back and back and back to make sure that the organization is still true to its mission, still true to the legacy and vision that the original founders had. Well, how does that grow and change as over time those people won't be there for us to turn to? So that's a really interesting challenge, and I think it's an important one. I want to tell you just a few things about the ARC that you may not know. First of all, let me give you the basic information. If you don't know the ARC, we're a nonprofit music venue in downtown Ann Arbor. That's the very basic piece of who we are. But we are also 2 other things. We're a presenter, We present in our own right the way that UMS does as well. We just happen to present most of our music in our own venue. Over 300 nights a year, we're actually presenting in our downtown club in Ann Arbor. But we also present in some other venues. Michigan Theater is one of them, which we're always pleased to be at, and Power Center, Hill Auditorium, and also Royal Oak Music Theater and some venues in Detroit. So we are a presenter as well. And then the third hat that the ARC wears is our community organization hat. We are, as all of us are here, at our core, a community organization. In some ways, almost before we're anything else. That's where it all bubbles up from. So that's the basic about the ARC. We present folk, roots, and ethnic music, which people might think of initially in a very narrow window. But for us, that's a very broad span of music. It's singer-songwriters, Americana, it's got blues, bluegrass, and it even bleeds a little bit into the rock edges there. So if you think folk is just this, we think it's really broad. A few things you may not know about the ARC. One is our mission is actually not to present music. Our mission is to enrich the human spirit. That's the key statement in our mission statement, and we enrich it through music and related arts. So that's the core that we look to every day when we present music at the ARC, when we work for the ARC, or people who volunteer for the ARC. That's the backbone of who we are. Speaking of backbone, if you don't know it, we have over 400 volunteers who donate over, close to 20,000 hours every year to help run the ARC. That's an amazing contribution from those folks. We also, people might think of the ARC as focusing on the Tom Paxtons, someone who is now considered an older artist, Ani DeFranco. But we actually are really known in the music industry, and I think Jim could confirm this, for the role that we play in showcasing emerging artists and helping to nurture that talent. One of the pieces of our business that's part of that is the Ann Arbor Folk Festival, and you may have heard that we just announced the Ann Arbor Folk Festival lineup. That is a 2-night event that takes place in Hill Auditorium and every year, and it's in its 41st year, and it's headlined by major artists, and then we have an underbill that showcases many of these emerging artists that come through the ARC throughout the year, and it's a way of generating a whole machine of these artists come back to the ARC, they're drawing more people, they build, we might put them in the Michigan Theater. So there's a lot behind the scenes that happens at the ARC, and just a little plug for this year's festival. John Prine headlines the Saturday night lineup, and Jason Isbell and 400 Unit the Friday night lineup, so you'll want to check that out. So the biggest challenge that the ARC has had in its first 50 years was the fact that we didn't own our space, that we were a venue that people associated with, but we never actually had the stability of owning it. We changed that in 2012. We were able to condominiumize our building and buy just our portion of it. We had a big capital campaign, and we just wrapped that up earlier this year, and we were able to pay off our mortgage early. And we were able to undertake the first phase of a series of renovations. So has anybody seen the new upstairs at the ARC? And if you haven't been there, get there, because it's really beautiful. Our next phase is going to be to renovate the outside, the entryway and the facade. So we're looking forward to that.
Marianne, can I just...
Am I running out of time?
No, could you introduce Bob?
Of course I could. I'm going to introduce Bob Gunzel. Bob Gunzel has been a long time mentor and member of the ARC. He's on our board of directors, and he chaired our capital campaign, and he's the reason that we went over goal. We had a goal of $2.5 million, and we raised $3 million. So. I also just want to give a shout out to Al Blixt, who is one of the founding members that I talked about. He's on our charter members, and he's also somebody who's been part of the organization. He's actually the person who coined the phrase, "We're the grandparents of the ARC," and so I appreciate that. Thank you all. So as I said, challenges have to do with how we evolve as an organization, how do we stay relevant, and also stay true to our history. It's a delicate balancing act, and it's an exciting one. We enjoy it. I'll throw out there a couple of other things that we may talk about when we talk with you or among ourselves. How do we develop younger audiences? And how do we develop younger audiences and younger supporters into actual donors. That's another big piece of, I think, the challenges that an organization like the ARC and probably all of our organizations face. So I'll leave it at that for now, and thanks for being here and for supporting all the arts in the way that you do. It's really vital to a vibrant community. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Rick Sperling, founder and artistic director of Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit. I am an Ann Arbor native. I'm sitting here realizing that I've connected to every institution up here. I went to elementary school with Mark. Russ went to high school with my older brother. Bob's son was my mother's student. I performed at the Black Sheep, the Michigan, the ARC. So I'm an Ann Arbor through and through. But I work in Detroit, and I started a group in 1992. We are celebrating our 25th anniversary. Woo! And Mosaic our mission is to empower young people to maximize their potential through professional performing arts training and the creation of theatrical and musical art that engages, transforms, and inspires. So we are both about excellence in arts and youth development. We are considered a leader in a new field called creative youth development, which is a national movement showing how the arts are uniquely suited to develop young people and to transform young people's lives. We have in our history toured to Africa, Asia, Europe. We have represented the US at the World Festival of Children's Theater, the World Festival of Youth Theater, and the World Choir Games, where we brought back 2 silver medals and 2 gold medals. We've also toured around the country and performed at the Kennedy Center, the White House, the Apollo Theater, Carnegie Hall, and recently at the Public Theater. We have our alumni have gone on to be nominated for Emmy Awards, Tony Awards, and Grammy Awards. We recently had 2 of our alumni at the same time on Broadway. But also a huge amount of our alumni are working in business. Our lawyers, our producers, our social workers, our teachers, our nonprofit administrators, and they all kind of look back to that time where they did the arts and did Mosaic as the transformational experience, and it was that way for me. The arts transformed my life. Mark might remember that I grew up with a speech impediment, but I never stuttered on stage. That was my safe space, that was my safe community, and it changed my life. And we see this happening to the young people in Mosaic. So as proud as we are of all those wonderful accomplishments, we're most proud of the fact that in our 25-year history, 95% of the young people who performed for Mosaic went to college. And in the last 6 years, that's been 100% of our seniors. And getting into some of the top schools in the country, from academically from Harvard, Yale, Brown, Princeton. Artistically, we just sent 2 young men to Juilliard last year, North Carolina School of the Arts, Berklee College of Music. So it really is, in many ways, transforming, changing the trajectory. But it's also about great art. And I think that is, and the 2 go together. The work that we do, we think, is relevant, powerful, theater and music. We have a choral group who has backed up Josh Groban and performed with Al Green and Sweet Honey in the Rock. We also have a theater company, and we do shows that are about the experiences of young people. Our big show coming in May is a play about a group of students in Detroit in 1966 who organized a walkout and developed their own freedom school as part of their protest, to protest the inequality of the education they were getting compared to other schools. This is a story that could not be more relevant in today, and we're telling that very unique Detroit youth story. One of the other things that we are doing now is like I said, we have young people who are producers for VH1 and in the recording industry, is really working on developing young people in careers behind the scenes. The Public Theater in New York has partnered with us because they see that while there is diversity to a certain extent on stage, there is nowhere near that level of diversity behind the scenes. In administrative, in technical, and all those other elements. So we are doing a week-long residency every summer at the Public Theater, and we will soon be announcing some funding that will support a full-time technical theater program and internships for young people behind the scenes. And this is key because if we can't develop a diversity, we need in a few years to have a much more diverse panel up here for the arts than we have right now. And so we're not going to do that just by putting young people on the stage, but by really giving them the power to really take control of all the elements of the arts and to use that for whatever it may continue on to.
Rick, let me ask, if people want to connect with you, because we don't know as much about Mosaic and we want to see some of your performances, what's the best way to do that? Obviously go to the website, but...
MosaicDetroit.org. But we have a season in Detroit at the Detroit Institute of the Arts and at the Redford Theater. And we have a holiday show called Woodward Wonderland. Detroit-specific holiday stories and music. But then also a concert in March and our major show in May. But all of that's on our information, or please talk to us. But I also want to say that being an Ann Arborite is a big part of why Mosaic is successful. I look out in the audience and I see Cliff and other people, Barbara Kramer, other people in Ann Arbor who supported Mosaic over the years and supported this idea that there's a need in Detroit and there's an opportunity in Detroit that we want to support. And I think there's always been a very powerful connection between Ann Arbor and Detroit, maybe stronger than there is with Oakland County or Macomb County even, of a focus of going where there's things needed. My leadership model was my mother, Doris Sperling, who some of you may know, who was a school teacher, but she kept starting things when she saw there was a need. She was one of the first open classroom teachers in the country. When I had no theater as a young person after doing junior light opera, anyone know junior light opera? All right! Which brought us so many great, there's an incredible theater program in the early 70s. When that died out, there was no theater for kids my age for 3 years, and my mother joined with other teachers like Merv Miller, Pioneer, and started Young People's Theater, which is still around. Years later, she started the Family Learning Institute, which is still around, and seeing that role model in my own house, that one, I saw was an incredible amount of work. It was really, really hard. And I also saw it could be done. And that's why I think role models are so key for our young people and the work that we do, because if you can't see it and you can't experience it, it's not going to be in your realm of possibility. So through my mother and everything else, that really launched my leadership into taking on Mosaic.
Thank you.
Will be at the Michigan Theater in May.
All right. It's also good to know some things coming up at Christmas, because a lot of things seem to close down in Ann Arbor as a students' league, but you guys got some very vigorous program. So I want to just open this up to have each of you respond to the others and maybe ask a question or just make a comment on the wonderful wealth of talent. Let's hear this for everybody. It's a wonderful, articulate group. Anybody have a comment, a question for one other person?
So, Mark, in terms of following the money, as you've done research into organizations, what are a couple things that you've observed in terms of fallacies and opportunities and virtues of arts organizations?
Great question. So, I mean, I think one fallacy is that arts organizations don't have revenue, right? So, in fact, revenue is really important. So there are tickets sold, there are services provided. I think Marie's doing sort of really interesting stuff at the Art Center and sort of bringing her knowledge, so maybe I'll pass this to you after this. But I think then the other part is what the trend line is. So I started studying symphony orchestras was one of my main focus, because the Auditorium Theater in Chicago was the first home of the Chicago Symphony. And in 1891, 2, and 3, when it started, they made 70% of their revenue from ticket sales and 30% from board donations. Currently, most nonprofits in the United States require 70% of the revenue from donations. So it's become very much driven by donor support, and only 30% from earned revenue, which is still an important 30%. But the need for our communities to understand, I think, the vitality of their contribution. And so if I had anything to call upon this audience to do, I'm sure in some ways I'm preaching to the choir, as they say, because you are already supporting the arts if you're interested in being here today. But I would love it if every one of you had at least 3 organizations that you were contributing to that you think are important in our community. And for one of those, I would say you should be a deep contributor. I mean, not only monetarily, but join the board, be involved. I think another really important thing that we need right now is just the media landscape has really fragmented on us. I mean, we used to have critics who would write stories and previews and things like that. There used to be newspapers that we'd all get, and we were talking about this a little bit before at breakfast. We assembled at like 6 something. I don't know what it was, but I can't remember.
I told them all to be there at 6:30, and I showed up at 6:40. But
we were on time. But anyway, we all depend on Facebook. But as you probably know, every time Facebook wants you to boost your post and pay money, and most arts organizations really have to rely on organic virality. Like, we can't pay that. So when you go to stuff or when you see stuff you're interested in, share it with your friends and tell them about your experiences and why it's meaningful to you. Tell them about the things you're donating to. Share links, with your organizations, and that will really strengthen the whole social fabric that supports the arts. But I'll let Marie talk about a little bit of the stuff you're doing at the Art Center about earned revenue and things.
Well, it's interesting. I had no background in the nonprofit world when I came here 5 years ago. And so I didn't at all understand that everyone wasn't trying to make money. And so I will say we're fortunate. I used to think we're very fortunate. We earn 85% of our revenue. That's great, but does it more mean that I need to have a stronger donor base? So there's only one way to go, and that's up. But I feel strongly, the first thing that really concerned me about arts and culture, specifically nonprofit, is that we're very, very vulnerable during an economic recession. Because statistically, people don't stop giving, but they give less to arts and culture. And so we all know that we have to meet basic needs. We get that. And so I'm happy that happens. On the other hand, I think we all need to be vigilant in our organizations, making sure that we have the flexibility during those times. We have backup plans. We have other ways to stay strong and be viable for when the economy comes back. Because when we're hurt during those times, we lose valuable employees, and essentially we have to start from scratch. So one of the very strong beliefs I have is a negative one, and that is I'm planning every single day for the next recession to make damn sure that we're here for another 108 years.
I have a question for you, and that is, what can I look forward to at the State Theater?
Well, thank you for asking. To Marie's point, the Michigan Theater operated for many, many, many years with 85% earned and 15% contributed revenue. And I did the analysis, and I said, we are way underachieving in terms of what the community would support us. Symphony orchestras, art museums, they tend to be 50% or more in terms of contributed revenue. Performing arts centers, performing arts series tend to be about 50-50. And in Ann Arbor, we can do a little bit better with the box office because it's such an enthusiastic audience. And we do about 40% contributed and 60% earned. And one of the things that I talk about around the country with cinemas is they need to do a much better job raising money because they underachieve and they're not thinking of themselves as a cultural institution. Which brings me to the State Theater. The State Theater has been transformed into a 4-screen cinema. I think people are going to be very pleased with what they see. There's a 50-seat theater, an 80-seat theater, a 100-seat theater, and a 135-seat theater.
To do that.
It's pretty amazing. It actually is pretty amazing. We've restored the kidney bean-shaped Art Deco lounge, which will be back to its Art Deco original design. The theater will be fully accessible. There's an elevator, there's an escalator. When you get out of the elevator, you'll look down Liberty Street. We put a window right in front. It's going to be very cool. I think people are going to like it a lot. And the program will be essentially similar to what we do now, which is independent American film, foreign language film, documentary films, and classic films. We will program a little bit more to our neighborhood, which is the campus. So I was walking down the street, and these young people were following me, and they said, "Have you ever been to they were talking to their friend, "Have you ever been to the Michigan Theater?" And the other said, "No," and they said, "Well, man, it is so great. It's an old historic theater. It's and I went to see the student orchestra. There's a pops orchestra, student pops orchestra that plays twice a year, and it's so great. But I wish they did real movies." And so we're going to do some real movies, for the students. But we look forward to opening on December the 8th. And one of the things that's kind of odd about Ann Arbor is that there's, for all intents and purposes, no government funding for arts. Again, it's weird. The number one government source of funding for the arts in the United States is local government, city and county money. Number 2 is state funding, and number 3 is federal funding. There's an old wives' tale that they spend more money on military bands than they do for the National Endowment for the Arts. I don't know if that's true, but it's probably relatively apocryphal and truthful. But the number one source, the largest amount of government money comes to arts organizations from local government. Our community, for whatever reason, feel that only the elites in our community should fund the arts. That there's no place for the people to fund the arts, that only those who are passionate and wealthy should support the arts. Now, we're very grateful for those people. They're the people that have donated the money for the State Theater renovation and for all of our organizations for all intents and purposes. But that's going to be an interesting thing, I think, for us to think about. The Michigan Theater was aided by the city of Ann Arbor, which actually ended up becoming a fetter for us. And we got the city to give the theater back to the Michigan Theater Foundation because there were folks that thought, well, if the city owns the building, they'll take care of it. Well, they never did anything for the theater except help facilitate its original purchase. And it's been individuals and businesses in our community that's made the Michigan Theater work. So as leaders in the community, think about that. Think about how our community reflects the values that we believe in by funding the library very generously. God bless us for doing that. God bless us for generously supporting the public schools. God bless us for supporting public transportation. God bless us for way overfunding parks in our community. But there's $0, again, for all intents and purposes, a few $1,000s that comes from county and city government to support the arts. Not that that's bad, it's just an interesting reflection of an aspect of our community that I don't think supports our community values, but you guys will determine that.
Thank you very much for that passionate support of Ann Arbor. And as we talk about Ann Arbor, I think it's also important for us to talk about the region because Rick, you cross 275 every day, and hopefully not too busy a time. But I think that we have to also embrace the rich tradition of Detroit and the arts, and think about integrating that. I know Mark does work with Motown. Is that yeah? So maybe you can mention that. But I think that we could do better about integrating this because the future of this region is really important. And Ann Arbor may just be too small to continue to stand alone. And I'm really a big proponent of how do we bring the divide across 275 to us and embrace the art scene there a little bit more. And again, we don't know what's going on. It's really hard to, we get the Ann Arbor Observer that tells us what's going on if we happen to look at the Free Press, but there's just so many great things that are happening, competing for our dollar.
Well, I would say it's important to look at the region as a whole in terms of the arts. Richard Florida, who's been wrong about a lot of things, to talk about a creative class, one thing I thought he said was very, very profound is that if you look at the metropolitan Detroit areas, as including Ann Arbor, city of Detroit and the surrounding suburbs, you have more arts and culture, unique arts and culture than almost any other region in the country. More than Chicago, not more than New York, but Ann Arbor with UMS and the college has such a unique experience that you can't get anywhere else. Detroit has things that you cannot get anywhere else. Motown was then, but techno, the world of techno revolves around Detroit and many other art forms. And then the wealth in Oakland County and Macomb County that provide so many opportunities. If you connect all of those together, we have the best arts and culture region, second to New York and maybe Los Angeles in the country. So I think it's really important to get out there and to look at it that way. We're so much stronger when we look at it, in that whole. And I think UMS and other organizations in Ann Arbor have recognized that and are partnering in Detroit and are partnering with these other areas.
Mark, Mark, maybe you guys can comment on this too.
Well, comment from wearing my UMS hat rather than my associate dean hat. But the University Musical Society has been partnering with Michigan Opera Theater. Wayne Brown went to the University of Michigan and is now running Michigan Opera Theater, but we're putting on dance events. And I think it's Romeo and Juliet this year, but it's in the new year and it's co-produced by the two organizations. And so, but the performances actually happen at the Civic Opera House right downtown. So it's, I think growing up in Ann Arbor, one of the things that always felt like is that Detroit was really far away and it turns out it's just on the road. It's really not hard to get there at all. And actually parking's pretty simple in Detroit, way easier than in Chicago or New York for sure. So, I think it's really intended. We do have to see southeastern Michigan as an entire ecosystem and really it's the way in which it's going to thrive. The whole system's going to thrive together and fall together. So I think that's important for us all to get out and to support, just sort of expand our awareness and just go to things. I think just being present in those Detroit performances is a great way to support it.
The other thing I wanted to just comment on before Purdue speaks, and that is the integration of the arts across visual and performing. And Marie has a cool thing. You want to talk about the piano, Marie? Yeah, piano in front of the Arts Center. Just what that did. But Jim, why don't you go first? Then we have.
Oh well, I don't have much to say because what I do is more probably national and international. But most of what I do locally is that our artists play Ann Arbor quite a bit because of the kind of community it is, and the vast majority at the Arc. But there was a study that came out recently that said that Detroit was second in terms of proportional population only to New York City in terms of the amount of available theater seats, and that those were really vibrant organizations. The one thing I would say about Ann Arbor, I think it's a destination point for people from the region for two reasons, and that is the art scene and the restaurant scene.
And sports might have a little bit to do with it.
Well, sports. Yeah. No, it does. But we don't live that far from the stadium, and we're like, well, if you're in Ann Arborite, you're like groundhogs, right? You stay in as the games are just before they start and just after they end, and then you go out and shop, when the games are.
But there are 3 times as many people that go to arts events in our community than go to football games.
Yeah. And I think that the arts need to do a better job of telling that story, plus that if I'm not mistaken, for every $1 that the arts produce, they produce as much as $3 in related activities, like people going to dinner before a show. 24 for every $1?
We're out of time.
Well, it's a rough business, brother.
Amen.
Anyway, a few years ago, myself and Hal Davis and Tim Marshall and a bunch of people were working on this idea of something similar to South by Southwest in Ann Arbor. But from that came that wouldn't it be great if the hotels and restaurants and arts groups and even sports groups in Ann Arbor worked closer together in terms of attracting people as a destination point to come here and offer weekend packages or whatever. Because the beauty of with the arts or sports, any of those, is that honestly, folks, when those people come in town, they're kind of using the infrastructure a little bit, but they're leaving a lot of money and they're leaving. And the money's staying here, you know, so that helps with a vibrant community as well.
Do people do that at the folk festival? Do you have any kind of programs where people
I think it's 80% of everybody who attends the folk festival in response to our survey does something else in Ann Arbor in conjunction with the folk festival. Restaurants will tell you it's, if not their biggest, one of their biggest weekends of the year. And that extends all the way down to Main Street, even though we're at Hill Auditorium. So we know that when people are coming to either the Arc or to the folk festival, that they're spending money elsewhere. So
I may get back to the piano in a second, but I just wanted to say from an economics point of view, and I do a lot of coaching of leaders, I think one of the hard things is have a vision beyond organizations. You know, I have a vision for the state or for the region. God bless L. Brooks Patterson, but he really hurts the whole region by his, frankly, racist approaches to transportation and things like that, as we're seeing now maybe with Amazon. But you know, the idea, for example, of Edinburgh Festival. I know, Bob, you were at the Edinburgh Festival this summer. I mean, we can do something like that in the region. I mean, it can happen. There's enough talent, enough venues to really make it happen. But have you had anything with hotels, like a package that people want to come to the weekend and you know, they spend the weekend at the hotel and get dinners and the whole deal, and they pay $500 or something like that?
well, we're going to work with Mary Kerr on that, right, Mary?
Where's Mary? Mary?
We don't currently have a package for that, but we have worked with local restaurants. We have, when we do Irish music, Conor O'Neill's usually has dinner and a show packages. But we would love to get more involved. You know, we've had ongoing conversations about how to make that work with the hotel system. I mean, they're a very powerful group, and they generate a lot of not only revenue but also, you know, there's a whole little sidebar about the tax that happens there. So, but there are opportunities, and you know, it's just an idea of how do we creatively partner together to make those things happen.
Besides the folk festival, there's a little thing called the art fair, and people in Edinburgh don't like the Edinburgh Festival for the same reason that people in Ann Arbor don't like the art fair, and that's the honest to God truth. We also have a little thing called the Summer Festival. We have a thing called the Ann Arbor Film Festival. Leslie's here. We have the thing called Cinetopia, which is a growing regional festival. So there's a lot of that stuff that already exists, and one of the frustrations that a lot of us have, like Marianne and I, and the Summer Festival folks, are thinking about, hey, we could do this new thing, and it's like, hey, there's already stuff there. Support it better, and it grows.
Marie, the piano. Sorry.
Well, how many of you know Omari Rush? So Omari was great. We were lucky to have him at the Art Center for 3 years, and one of the things that he did, they do all kinds of things, and I don't know about them. One day, a piano showed up at the Art Center, and I said, why do we have a piano here? And they said, because we're going to paint it with black, with chalk paint. We're going to put it out on the side of the street, and we're going to let people come in and decorate this piano, and anybody who comes by is going to be able to sit down and play it. And so I thought, really? But wouldn't you know, we heard everything from chopsticks to Beethoven all day long. And one day, I walked out in the evening, and one of our wonderful homeless people that frequents the Art Center area, he sat down, and you wouldn't believe what an amazing piano player he was. And he was playing, and I went out there and I was listening to him, and while he was playing, he was crying. And he said, thank you so much for putting this on the street. This is the most amazing thing. And who knew he was so talented? So anyways, we like to do great things in the community. It's a great place to do those kind of things. And we're never shy of great ideas, just resources to execute them.
Thank you. It's a great story. Maria has also been very kind, as some of you others, to come to my classes and other classes at the university and talk about leadership and some of her lessons of having been an engineer at 22 at a plant in Flint, right? So that's nothing is too tough for you now, right? It's easy. But somebody mentioned Mary Carr. Mary, could you stand up? And Mary, could you just maybe shout out what you do? And there's a lot of people we want to introduce in the audience, and Mary's one of the first ones. So.
Great, fantastic. I'm Mary Kernan, President and CEO of the Washtenaw County Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have offices in 2 locations, downtown Ann Arbor and in downtown Fleming. And we've been in business for, this is a very quick, I'm sure everybody probably already knows, for over 40 years. We're funded primarily from the hotel tax. I think that hotels were brought up several times. And also destination was brought up several times. Sure. What was the matter? I don't want to hurt anybody. Thank you. So as I said, we're funded by the hotel tax in Washtenaw County, and we contract with Washtenaw County government to promote tourism, meetings, and conventions in Washtenaw County. And we've had the pleasure. First of all, I'd like to say that sitting here for the first time, this panel was very inspiring, very knowledgeable, and I very much was just really delightful to listen to all of you again. We've also had the pleasure, stop me whenever you want me to. I don't know how much time you give for somebody to be introduced, but I've had the pleasure of working probably with, I think with everyone sitting up here on this esteemed panel at some time. And I'm really interested, especially, there were a couple of comments about, again, our primary role is destination promotion, so, and some destination development as well. But I think, and we focus primarily on bringing people from outside the community into the community. We do a lot of research. We work, again, with many of you in the room and with the University of Michigan, and also with our partners in the state and in Detroit as well. But something that's of particular interest to me today is to, Rob, you mentioned bringing, I believe it was you who said, how do we bring Detroit, sports, arts, the university, community foundation, government together, and such as the Convention and Visitors Bureau, to have that conversation, to talk about what the economic enhancement is and benefit educational and cultural enrichment to our entire community. We would love to be a part of that conversation and even facilitate
Could have it here next year, that would be good.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
And another thing is to learn more about what we do and how, some of those issues, such as I heard today about, we don't have the traditional media that we've had in the past. We can only rely so long on some of our other social media platforms and other ways.
That's going to lead me to one other thing, if I could just go ahead.
Sure, please. I'd love to. We work on doing that at the Convention and Visitor Bureaus and helping to tell our story, our rich story through the media. So would love to be a part of that conversation.
Well, thank you very much. And there's one person here that, there's lots of people I want to introduce, but is Molly still here? Molly, come on, standing up. Molly is the executive director, I guess, of WEMU. So let's hear from Molly. Pardon?
We're here to tell your stories.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I've been on Lisa Berry's program on afternoon a couple times, and it's a great outlet. EMU is WUMM is a local station, but it covers the state. EMU really covers the art scene great in Ann Arbor, and I just want to shout out to you and thank you for all you do. And there's some opportunities for people to be on Lisa's shows. Are there other opportunities that you have that we should know?
www.emu.org and look at our contact list. Talk to our news director. We're cultural partners with almost every cultural organization in this room. So
if people want to promote their programs, to call you and.
Exactly.
All right,
so
thank you.
www.org, look at our contact list, and that's what we're here for.
And that's another piece in terms of the money drives. I mean, they're trying to create, I know Russ and I and several other people have been on EMU and UOM to try to help with the fund drives.
We're 70% user supported too.
Okay, thank you, and the great jazz that we bring. Who else? There's many other people. Deborah, can you talk about the Arts Alliance and what you guys do? It's another tremendous resource. By the way, behind you is Roger Rail. Roger, I forgot to mention, is one of our sponsors. Roger is a videographer. He's got his own company that does video and other technology support, and he makes these programs all available on my YouTube channel. I got my own YouTube channel, right? If I say anything bad about the president, he might revoke my license. I don't know, but anyway, these programs are all there. This one should be up early next week for people to be able to refer to. It'd be a great thing to show for staff development and other fundraising opportunities. Deborah, tell us.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Deb Pollock. In addition to being Russ's wife, I'm the director of the Arts Alliance, and our goal is to do, I think what Jim mentioned, is to really shout out and talk about how important the arts and creative industries are to Washtenaw County. Roger is in a creative industry. Certainly everybody here, we spent a lot of time talking about the nonprofits today, and they are critical and important to what we do. A recent study showing a $100 million impact for the nonprofits alone here. But we also have an extremely large creative industry too that goes beyond just the nonprofits. So there's something that is what the Arts Alliance does as an advocate and a support organization for the creatives in our community. And so that this place remains a great place to live, work, learn, play, and visit, and create. Molly, by the way, when you stood up, there's this halo around you. I just want to mention that. We appreciate what WEMU does. They recently asked the Arts Alliance, myself, to be part of a program on Tuesday mornings called Creative Impact, which is talking about the impact of the creative industries in Washtenaw County, to talk about the breadth and depth of it. And it's not only about the people on the stage, the people performing, but it's all those people behind the scenes doing all of those things. So we appreciate that. It's a considerable part of our community. We talk a lot here about how important tech is in bringing in big businesses to Washtenaw County. Spark is focused on that, and that's incredibly important. But all of these organizations that we can either call mom and pops, or we can call locals, or we can talk about the storefronts, when you aggregate them, when you put them all together, they are so important, not only for the economic impact, but they are about our quality of life and place. And so that's what our job is the Arts Alliance. We're a membership organization. We look to have people who believe in what this community can do to participate in what we're doing, so we can support the nonprofits and the creative for-profits. So thank you for everything that this group does. Again, preaching to the choir.
Well, thank you for all you do.
But yes, thanks for
happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're going to enjoy your 40s, I'll tell you.
I'm sorry?
You're going to enjoy your 40s.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to also, I know there's other people. Ann Arbor Symphony is represented out here. Could you please stand up? There's probably lots of folks I don't know who are running organizations. So if you do have something you're running or promoting, let me know. Come on, stand up here.
I'm Mary Stefan.
Mary.
All right. I'm Mary Stefan-Glasky, Executive Director of the Ann Arbor Symphony, and I love listening to what I'm hearing here. Ann Arbor Symphony, we are the largest arts employer of the county with our musicians, the tech, all the backstage, and so we are very proud of that part of us. We are also very, very keen about the education programs, because though we don't know that everyone will become a violinist or the second violinist or the second section, whatever, we are hoping that we will grow people who make music part of their lives, and therefore will become backstage. They'll be techies, they'll be board members, they will be thinking about the arts in the rest of their lives. I'm motivated by hearing the balance of our earned income has gone up from 30% to 40 to 42%, which is bucking the trend of most orchestras. Most orchestras are lower than 30% earned income. So we raise a lot of it. And the other thing I wanted to sort of come in on what you were saying is the not only great staffing, but board members. So that
how many of you are on boards here for the arts?
Really, thank you. That makes such a difference, having board members who are leaders, who are partners our musicians, all working together in the same goal. That makes a huge difference in our community.
Thank you. Well, we wanted to open things up. I'm probably missing some key folks out there.
Leslie Raymond, who represents the
Leslie.
second oldest film festival in the United
Leslie,
States.
stand
the Ann
up.
Arbor Film Festival.
Thank you, Leslie. You have any questions for the group? We're going to kick off some questions here.
Well, maybe I could just say, I don't know how many people have come to the Ann Arbor Film Festival, but we have been here for 56 years.
When you came as a, well, you didn't be that old. That's impossible.
I just want to say that
She runs it. She wasn't the founder.
Festival did it.
That was Tom Bray.
I wanted to say that we, yes, Tom's our technical director. Many of you in the room know him from his work at the University of Michigan. I actually met Tom when I was a grad student at the University of Michigan. So, and he has set a great tone for technology, not only up at the Leaderstaff, but for a lot of us in the community here. But what I wanted to say about the Ann Arbor Film Festival is that I think one of the most important things we do is that we hold a place for the stories of the other. That's not necessarily opposite of commercial or mainstream, but places where individual expressions can be told. And I think a big part of that in our history is that we came out of the early 60s, where this community really set the tone with the counterculture. It really embraced what was possible for humanity in its evolution in terms of tolerance, respect, understanding for others. And I think that's the core of why we exist and what we're here to present.
Thank you very much. I wanted to also talk about the businesses in the community. One of the challenges I think that we have right now is that we have what I would think of as more nationally or globally based businesses that are big businesses. For example, Google's here and lots of people working there, but they work outside of their sales force, they're outside of the region. And Bank of Ann Arbor, we should give a great shout out to Bank of Ann Arbor and Tim Marshall for their Summit Lunch. There's another activity that makes downtown extremely vibrant during the summer and bringing in some great acts, some of whom have gone on to be like, what is it, Wolfpack? Wolfpack. They've gone on to become national stars, and then Jim can pick them up and represent them. So we got the whole thing going here. And then when they become really famous, Mark can be a historian about them later on. So I saw him first in that part, right? So you see how the whole thing works together. But one of the problems I think we have is that we have so many businesses that are here, they grow. Unfortunately, too many of them are sold and then move out of town. So we don't have the vibrancy of things like the Bank of Ann Arbor. Let's see, Pam is here. Pam, can you say hi? Your bank has done a lot of supporting of the community. And you've changed the name, I forgot what it is now. So. Old National, so I can still think of it as United Bank and Trust. But the banks, Flip has been very much a part of that. They've always been the lifeblood, but now we don't have that kind of vibrancy. We don't have people, that are meeting and like Pfizer, a big company. We can only depend so much on the university people to give because it's a lot. So I think we need to do more to try to get those young people involved in boards. Go to those people at Google or Duo and say, hey, there's a community piece here. I don't know how well that's going. I mean, do you guys get those kind of folks coming? Let me just ask that. Do you get the young entrepreneurs contributing to the arts?
I just want to say one of the things we've started at the School of Music, Theater, and Dance is actually a new entrepreneurship and leadership program. And we actually support, try to connect.
Can you speak up because of trucks? This is much louder.
Sure, happy to. One of the things we've started at the School of Music, Theater, and Dance is a new leadership and entrepreneurship program. And we're actually looking actively to find community partners who would provide internship positions for our students. I mean, paid internships are certainly nice, but unpaid internships, if we can sort of match a student's interest and their goals with a community partner, it would really be fantastic for us. And that could happen during the year that they can do an internship class for credit, or during the summer when they have a lot more time. So we have placed interns with the Summer Festival, with the Ann Arbor Symphony, but actually, and we've been looking at sort of national things with National Sawdust, the Metropolitan opera, Carnegie Hall, but it would be great to have a more robust regional talent development program to really have a lot of these great young students be and come sort of learn the ropes here in our community and hopefully stay in our community. So if you're interested in that, please reach out.
Any other questions we could open?
We also have another regional leader here.
Actually, I was going to introduce Jennifer Goulet. So what the Arts Alliance does on the local level in Washtenaw County, which is a lot of research and aggregating the numbers and letting you know how important it is in various ways. Jennifer does that on a state level, and we're both very much involved on a national level. So come on up and say a couple words.
You guys can stand back so that everybody can come up in front so Roger can get your beautiful faces on the video here.
This is good.
Yes.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody.
Discovered.
Yeah. Thanks, Deb, for that introduction. And I would say Joan Moore is also a member of the Creative Many Board, so I'm glad to be here today. And I'm actually moving back to Ypsilanti. So I'm really excited about having been engaged here. So, real quick shout out, Creative Many is a statewide organization working to develop creative people, creative places, a creative economy for a competitive and resilient Michigan. And we do that through research and advocacy, professional practice, and a new grant-making funding stream that is just about to get started. And one of the resources that I wanted to shout out was our Creative State Michigan research, which if you go to creativemany.org and go to our research page, we are providing a lot of the data points to help you make an effective case for telling, right, the economic story, the social impact story, for the power of the work of organizations like have been presented here today. And as the state's advocacy voice for the power of the arts and the power of the creative industries, we so vitally depend on the work of organizations that have been showcased today to be able to really tell those powerful stories of the way arts and culture are changing the lives and the opportunities for our kids, right? Building vibrant communities that are the places that we all want to live and invest in and explore, the way it's really a powerhouse in our economy. And as just as one example, I think we talk a lot about the arts, like being challenged, right, for resources. To put it in context at the national level, arts and cultural industries have contributed 4.2% to our nation's gross domestic product. That's more than transportation, that's more than construction, that's more than agriculture, and that's more than utilities. Think about that. Put that, right, let that sink in. We are not giving enough attention to the power of these industries, not only in and of themselves as a business and a contributor to our communities and our lives, but the way that they are driving every element of our economy. You can't have cars, you can't have fashion, you can't have entertainment, you can't have sports, you can't have anything without creative, design-focused minds, right? Thinking about
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'd like to wrap up here. Something I do with my classes all the time and my small groups that I run for leaders is to think, what is the lesson you've learned today? You think, what's one thing you're going to carry away from today when you walked in this door that you didn't know before? Hold on just 1 second. If everybody could just jot down one thing that they learned, including the panel, we're going to ask you guys to wrap this up with something that maybe you learned from being part of this. But what I'd like you to do is to send, I'll give some of you a chance to say those. We won't have room to go for everybody, but I'd like to have you send those to me, and I'm going to post on I put out a weekly column called Dr. Rob. It's a blog post. I'll have Roger's video, but I'll also like to include 50, 100 things that people took away from this, that they learned during this activity. And it's also interesting to learn something that maybe you could take an action item with. What are you going to do differently as a result of having been had that wonderful opportunity to listen to this panel? Is there something that an action you're going to take? Maybe it's whatever it might be. So take a second, write that down. Is it Tom? Yeah. What's your comment, please?
Well, so I was going to say that you said something I learned today, and I didn't realize you were going to write it down, but I'll tell it anyway. This is something I've known, but I want to make sure that people are getting this message. If the business doesn't work, the art doesn't happen. You have to pay attention to making sure the business end works. We talk about not just accounting, but anybody who is involved in producing live events or anything involving technology. The business of making all those things happen behind the scenes. Not just the dollars and cents, but the actual putting the nuts and bolts together. If the business doesn't work, the art doesn't happen.
Okay, great. You guys want to take a shot at that? What's something maybe you learned and will take away different? I'd like to start. Anyone?
Jim? Well, no, it was more something that's thought-provoking that Marianne touched on earlier, and that's that I don't know what the word would be to describe it, but that how do you respect the tradition of the organization while at the same time moving it forward? I think that just got me thinking.
Okay.
I mean, I'm blown away just by the amount of activity and then just the amount of sort of leadership in the room is really pretty impressive. And we have an incredible resource right here. I think so often, when you're doing fundraising, when you're trying to do the big splashy thing that everybody's going to notice, you try to reach hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And it's very clear that we can just reach across the street and accomplish a lot in the Southeast Michigan region.
What my takeaway is a more visual and kind of kinesthetic experience about how the arts are so interwoven into our community and how our community is interwoven into the arts. I mean, you can't take out Mary Kerr's and the Bank of Ann Arbor's, and you can't take that out of who our organizations are and what their organizations do for our organizations and with our organizations. So that's a real sort of tactile thing, and it's inspiring to know that we're all connected, and thank you for that.
Following up on what Tom was saying, I think that as passionate as we are about the art that we do, we become passionate about sustainability. Because it's not enough to have a great arts organization. It needs to last 100 years. It needs to last beyond you and become a fabric of the community. And I would, stress to people that, individual donations and corporate donations are so huge for nonprofit arts organizations because we can put that work directly to the mission and directly to the place that's going to support us the best. The challenge that we have as organizations, we only are 20% earned revenue, is that we are at the whim of funding sources that are continually changing the target and changing the area, and it actually can destabilize us. And what's so key about unrestricted funds, individual donations, and things like that we have the flexibility is it allows the arts people to put the money where they think it's going to best sustain the arts. And so I want to encourage people that it's so much more important. It can't be left to the foundations or even to the government because, like I said, that is changing so often. It creates an additional challenge for us.
Like most businesses, what we do and what we are aligned, but they're not the same thing. So what we do are the arts, but what we are to minister to individual needs and build community. And I think if you went through each of us, that's more what we do than anything else. But what we are and what the arts is is very well suited to do is to transform those individuals, to address individual psychological needs and build community.
I have to say what I'm taking away is a very intimate thing, and that is I spent 25 years in automotive, traveling all over the world, having very deep, shallow relationships. And so I have drank the Kool-Aid. This is the first time I have made more true, deep relationships, people I call friends, and it's amazing to me. No one paid you to come here, and you're all here. And so that's really an amazing thing, and I continue to be overwhelmed, and I'm grateful to know all of you. Thanks for coming, and thanks for letting me be part of this amazing arts and culture scene in Ann Arbor.
Well, I'd like to thank you all, and I'll tell you one of the takeaways that I have as a consumer of entertainment in general. So we would throw in eating out and sports. I have so much money I could spend on it, you know, and probably as I get older, I have a little bit less money to spend on it. And I wish I knew. I get mailings probably from each of you. And I sit down, and my wife and I will sit down. I wish I had a calendar that had the whole year of everything that's going on at the Art, all the programs that are going on at Michigan Theater, Sonic Lunch Series, everything. And I could say, okay, I've got X amount of money that I want to spend ahead of time. What are, you know, between UMS, everything, what's the, let's say $1,000 or $500, whatever it is, that I'd like to put my money on and get those tickets and not just wait. You know, I spend money on the Tigers. I get Bob Gunzel and I have been suffering through the last couple of Tiger seasons. But you know, it'd be nice to have like a one-spot spend. You know, spend at AnnArborEntertainment.com or whatever, and you say, okay, I want to buy these tickets for this thing, and it's going to be easy. And you know, you've got class maybe at the Art, but some kind of arts. What am I looking for? Like a website where you can go and buy and see the whole year in advance. So that would be. Is there anything like that that's out there? I know the Observer tries to do that monthly, but
well, I would direct people to Culture Source. We're talking about regional Culture Source, formerly known as the Cultural Alliance for Southeastern Michigan, and they do consider Ann Arbor as part of. Not all initiatives do. So that's Ann Arbor and Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. They did have this very high-powered thing called Ixidia. I think it's just through Culture Source now. But I think that's their goal, is to be able to connect to all of these opportunities regional. And any Ann Arbor group can get their stuff on their calendar. It's available to everybody.
It's actually pretty hard to figure out. If I want to go to Detroit, I'm not even sure where to find, you know, what's at the theater in Detroit. And so Marianne, go ahead.
So Rob, some of us are booking our activities and events 6 weeks to 6 months before they happen. So what you need to do is start a sort of arts bucks kind of thing. And you give it your $1,000 and then you redeem it throughout the year at the organizations of your choice for the events of your choice, because otherwise places like the Ark are going to lose out of your big vision. So get that started, and then we'll all benefit.
My spare time.
One of our colleagues said, I think it was Mark, said, choose 3 organizations that you love and you're passionate about, and do what you can to support them, and be a major contributor or a major participant in one of those 3. And I think as a consumer, all of us would agree that's the best thing that you can do. We appreciate every single dollar that we get, but we appreciate our passionate fans even more. They make the difference. They're who are our market. That's who we program to. So don't look for a macro solution. Focus on a micro solution. Know what you love, find what you love, and support 3 of them. One of them deep.
I love you all. So this is wrap it. Please feel free to hang out in here, or we might be able to roll into the other room. And bring, don't leave the food there. Just bring some back to your coworkers and tell them about the program. And thanks, Roger, for the video. We look forward to it.